If you're the kind of person who only wants a tool that actually works day to day, that won't sit on a shelf gathering dust, and that feels like a solid investment rather than a collection of flashy specs, you've probably felt a little hesitation when you first saw the A&D MF50 Moisture Analyzer. It's easy to get lost in the jargon. Halogen heating, 0.002 G resolution, full calibration, and wonder if those numbers will translate into something you can rely on when you need it most. The real question is whether this analyzer can fit into a busy lab or workshop routine without demanding a PhD in instrumentation, and whether the price you're paying really gives you a return in accuracy and convenience rather than just a brag-worthy data sheet. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon, and I'll walk you through why that matters before we dive into the practical side of things. First off, think about the typical scenario where you actually need a moisture analyzer. In my experience, the most common use cases involve testing raw materials. Think plastic pellets, powdered chemicals, or food ingredients to verify that they meet specification limits before they go into production. In those moments, you're not looking for a device that can give you a 10-point curve of moisture loss over hours. You need something that can tell you, within a few minutes, whether the sample is at 0.5% moisture or 2% moisture, and do it consistently. The MF50's halogen heating element is designed to speed up that drying phase, which means you can get a reading in roughly the same time you'd spend on a conventional oven, but without the guesswork of turning the heat on and off manually. Who should buy this? If you run a small to medium-sized lab, a quality control station, or even a hobbyist setup where you need to validate material moisture content on a regular basis, the MF50 hits a sweet spot. The 51G capacity lets you handle a decent batch size without having to run dozens of microsamples, while the 0.002G resolution gives you the granularity you need for tight tolerance projects. The fact that the unit comes with a free 2-day shipping option and a starter pack of 100 test samples also lowers the barrier to actually start using it right out of the box. No need to hunt for compatible vials or figure out how to calibrate the sensor yourself. On the flip side, if you're looking for a high-throughput industrial solution that can process dozens of samples per hour, or if you need a device with built-in robotic handling, the MF50 isn't built for that scale. It's a benchtop instrument, so you'll still have to manually load each sample, which can become a bottleneck in a large production environment. Likewise, if your primary need is measuring moisture in very high-temperature processes, say, metal casting, halogen heating won't reach the temperatures required, and you'd be better off with a specialized furnace-linked analyzer. Now, let's talk about practical strengths that actually matter after you unpack the box. The first thing I noticed is how straightforward the user interface is. Instead of a maze of menus, you get a clean screen that prompts you to select the sample weight, set the drying temperature, and start the timer. The software saves each run automatically, which is handy for traceability. You can pull up a past result and see the exact conditions used without digging through a spreadsheet. That alone cuts down on the administrative overhead that often eats up more time than the analysis itself. Another real-world benefit is the full calibration that comes with the unit. A&D includes a simple calibration routine and a reference weight that you can use to verify the scale's accuracy before each batch of tests. In practice, this means you spend less time worrying about drift and more time trusting the numbers you get. In the few labs I've spoken with that use the MF50, technicians reported that they could get reliable measurements right after opening the box, without having to send the unit out for a professional service. On the downside, there are a couple of trade-offs you should be aware of. Because the heating element is halogen, it reaches the target temperature quickly but can be a bit finicky with samples that have very high volatile content. In those cases, the moisture can evaporate faster than the sensor can record, leading to a slight underreporting of water content. The workaround is to run a longer drying cycle or to use the pre-dry step that the software offers, which adds a few extra minutes to the overall test time. It's not a fatal flaw, but it does mean you need to understand the nature of your material before you hit start. Another practical weakness is the limited capacity for continuous operation. The MF50 will automatically shut off after a predefined idle period to protect the heating element, which is a sensible safety feature but can be inconvenient if you're running a marathon testing session. You'll need to restart the machine and recalibrate the scale if the shutdown occurs mid-run, which adds a small pause to your workflow.